King. Anybody else with the transaction?
I don't have any, but I'm looking for.
You open an escrow.
Wait, the way you said that, William, I feel like I won something.
You did.
I'm looking for, what?
Why don't you stand up so you can hear us? We can hear you a little bit better.
Well, I sold the, this is the seller that I sold their house. And I'm looking for someplace there in West Hills. At least 550,000. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
Maybe no more than 150.
Well,
No more than 5.
yeah, 550,000 below.
Okay. In West Hills.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're going 11:30 for caravan over there. Sure.
Very good. All right. How about for him? Rosa? Anybody else?
I do. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, Woodland Hills, West Hills. And that's it.
Is that a want? Is that a want or is that a listing?
A buyer.
Okay, that's a want. Buyer want, right? All right. I have a listing that just came up today. We've been working on it. Rodney has already processed most of the short sale, right, Rodney? Where's Rodney?
Rodney, this is in the men's room.
Oh, okay. I'll leave him there. All right. 12601 Van Nuys Boulevard. 12601 Van Nuys Boulevard in beautiful downtown Pacoima. It's a 2+2. It's about 980 square feet. It's a condo, and I believe the HOA is what, $373 a month. It is priced to sell. It's a short sale, and one of the loans has already been approved, if I recall, or forgiven. It's $215,000. So if you have investors, I'm already getting notices from investors who want to buy it all cash. So if you guys have investors, let me know. Write it up, subject to inspection. It's tenant occupied. 2+2, 215,980 square feet in Pacoima on Van Nuys Boulevard. It's in walking distance to public transit, walking distance to the shopping, and your freeway close to the 210, the 118, and the 5 freeway. Okay? That's a quick one. It's going to go really quick. I have another one in Alhambra. It came out last week. It is a duplex, 1 bedroom, 1 bath each unit. 1 bedroom, 1 bath each unit. It's a fixer-upper. It has a lot size of 6,500 square feet. The area is really, really nice. It's all around single-family homes and a couple duplexes and triplexes, but it's really more like a single-family home area. I think the highest and best use is to convert it to a house and add on more square footage. The price is $538. It's a probate, $538,800. It is a probate subject to court approval. Probably won't have approval for another, I would say, 30 or 45 days. Okay, so that is a subject to inspection only, and that is in where? Alhambra. The address is 82 South Hampton Terrace in Alhambra, right near Huntington Drive and Main Street, about 2 minutes from South Pasadena, so it's in a great area, okay? That's in Alhambra, all right? So that's my listing picture. They're each of 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and it needs work. I've seen the inside of one of the units. It definitely needs work, but it is in a great neighborhood, and it'll probably sell somewhere between 500 and, the low fives, high fours in that price range. Right, Rodney?
That's right.
Okay. I wanted to share some other good news. If you take a look at this projector, we have a speaker today, and I want to be quick, but I also want to bring you guys up to speed on some things that are going on. About 2 weeks ago, a good friend of mine made an announcement at the network meeting in Sylmar. How many of you ever go to the network meeting in Sylmar? I will share with you that if you ever have a listing in the Northeast Valley, you need to go there, because those agents work that market and they will get your buyer with a great offer. And they're all great agents. They're really nice people. They have breakfast together. They have great information that they share. It's run by a friend of mine named Bud Morrow, who has been doing it probably for close to 20 years. It's great information. So a good friend of mine.
Been over 20 years, actually.
Over 20 years?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, time flies, man. So anyhow, the announcement was made. You see this? Can you all read it? All right. You see this here? What does that say?
Mel Wilson and Associate
Do
Realtor,
you see this? What does that say?
Rocking Horse Realty
You
Incorporated.
see this address here? I sent this announcement out to all of you over a week ago. Anna Maria, Anna Maria Colon, who happens to be the hermana of a guy who's in this room right now. Can you stand up, Robert Banuelos? Robert Banuelos, please stand up. Robert works with Anna, and they're brothers and sisters. Anna's been in business for over 40 years. I've been talking with Anna for about 3 years about coming together with us, for us to merge our efforts together. And so about a year ago, she said, yeah, I want to do it. And then something came up and she said, no, not now. And then a few weeks ago, we started talking again and she said, yeah, I want to do it. And so she made an announcement that she's going to step down as broker, step down as owner, and that I'm going to step up. I'm going to step up as a broker owner, and she's going to rebrand to Mel Wilson and Associates, doing business as Rocking Horse Realty. Okay, Rocking Horse Realty has been in San Fernando for over 40 years. It's in a great location. I'll show you some pictures of the office, and I'll tell you how it's going to impact you. How many of you got the email that I sent out to you regarding the notice? Some of you got it. Did any of you read it? You read it. Okay, so what's going to happen is over the next 60 days, we're going to be closing on this building. We're actually buying the building too. And what's going to happen is that we're going to convert our operations and merge our operations together. Anna will be there as a agent, broker agent. Don't bug her with stuff because she doesn't want you to bug her. She doesn't want to manage anymore. But she's going to be a great support, and she's a great listing and buyer's agent. She has been for 40 years. She's an awesome woman. She was president of the Southland Regional Board of Realtors a few years back. She was also honored as the Outstanding Realtor of the Year a few years back, too. So she is a top quality person. She wants to spend more time with her grandkids, but she also wants to grow the business, too. So Robert and she are on the team together. They do a lot of business, and I want you guys to know the way it's going to work. We're going to be able to operate out of that office and this office. Those of you who have an office space here, you remain here, but let's say you're doing a listing presentation or you want to meet a buyer from Sylmar or any place along that 210 corridor, and you don't want to drive all the way out here. You'll be able to take your swiper, hit the keypad, you'll be able to go in and access that office just like you access this office. And let's say Robert works out of the San Fernando office and he's selling a property in Porter Ranch. You can come over here, meet the client here, use the swiper, sit in the office, and there you are. Okay, so that's how it's going to be. It's going to be seamless. You can operate out of that office, you can operate out of this office. We are growing, and we're excited about where the growth is going. And so what I want to do is make sure you guys are growing too, that your personal businesses are growing. We have a meeting after this meeting at 11:30 for those of us who signed up for the Daniel Penley training and coaching. How many of you signed up for that program? All right, last week we did our cold calling, networking, and our role playing, so we're going to do that again. Let me share with you a couple pictures of the building, and then I'm going to have our special speaker today speak. All right, this is really a traditional looking building. Can you turn that light off behind you, Aida? Thank you. All right, this just only shows a part of it, but it's a very rich, culturally Mexican kind of a neighborhood. Now, those of you who are El Salvadorian, don't hate on us, okay? Because Mexicans were here first. All right. We all speak the same language.
You didn't know my first house was in San Fernando.
All right.
Don't listen to this alone.
All right. All right. It's a great neighborhood. Here are some of the aspects of the building, just so you can see. We're going to have a nice parking lot. We have, let me see if you're, this is part of the parking lot here. Let me just go to a couple of the photos that will give you a better sense of the building. All right, this is what it looks like here. Like that. Okay. That's me, Jasmine. Oh. Okay, I just don't want to show them all the cruddy stuff. I just want to show them the building. Oh. All right. Yeah, this is work that needs to be done on the back of the building. You don't want to see all the back of the building. This is the part of the parking lot, and you can go from here into there, and that's the entryway from the back. But the street is out here on McClay Street. Anybody know where McClay Street is at? McClay and Glen Oaks Boulevard, right off near the 210 freeway. All right, it's in the city of San Fernando. That's some of the story.
There's a Wells Fargo bank right there in the corner, so I'll give you a perspective of where it's at.
Right, and so here's a Rocking Horse. Okay, and here's what the building looks like on the inside. So it's beautifully decorated with a lot of traditional Mexican and antiques and arts. We're going to upgrade some of the office space. We're going to upgrade the internet. I just want to give you a sense of what it looks like so that you, when you go there, oh.
Somebody was busy.
Anybody want some peanuts? No.
That must be your desk, Robert. All those files.
All right, so you see, that's what it kind of looks like there. And it's a really nice building. And is that Robert? Where you at? Oh, I see George and Anna over there.
Yeah, I'm right here on the bottom left right there.
You're right here.
Right around there, yeah.
Okay, all right, that's your space. So Robert says don't be putting your eyes on his space, okay? All right. Okay, so that's what it looks like from the exterior. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. We are growing. We now have this office. We have the office, you can connect now. The office in Culver City that we opened up last November. Okay, and so we are growing. I need your help. I want good people to come work with us. So I am looking to interview agents who really, do you think, are honest people and who are willing to work, and I will show them how to make money in this business. A lot of us are engaged with making money. How many of you guys want to make money? You want to make it here? I'll be like this, man. So with that, I want to share with you how you can help your client make money and how you can help your client save money. Can you turn that light on, please? Okay. Our guest speaker is Ken Harris, who is a certified exchange specialist. And this is no easy designation. This is something that requires, what's that? You don't have a phone?
Folder.
Oh. What time did you get here? No, kidding.
You talk about things.
sorry.
There you are. All right, so I will share with you that this is a great technique and strategy to use so that you can help your clients save money and leverage their investments. How many of you have ever closed on a 1031 tax deferred exchange? 1, 2 of you have. Okay, you have to. All right, it's a great benefit. I'm not going to talk about all the benefits. I'll just share with you. I have a client that I've been working with for 32 years, and I sold them a bunch of properties, assembled a number of parcels together. And last year, I closed with them on my largest sale to date. Okay, it was 5 parcels together, land, house, and we sold it to a school. The school bought the property. I helped them amass those parcels over about a 30-year period. And they decided they wanted to retire, but they didn't want to pay all those taxes because they were going to invest into other things. And so the long story short is that we put the sale together. It took us about a year to close the deal. But at the end of it all, we took some of those funds. One of the parties says, I just want my money, I'll pay the tax. And so it was a $4.6 million transaction. So one of the clients says, I'll just pay the tax. So they just took their money and they're going to pay. The other one says, I don't want to pay all those taxes. I want to reinvest my money and I'll let my estate pay the taxes one day if they, die before, if I die before they do. And so with that, I want to talk to you about Ken Harris. Ken and I have done some transactions some time ago. How long have you been in business now?
I've been over 20 years. I've been with First American almost 21 years now.
21 years, that's a long time. And they have an exchange part of what they do. And he's going to tell you about the values, the benefits to your clients on doing a 1031 exchange and how important it is to have a good accommodator, somebody who can do what they do. So with that, Ken Harris of First American Exchange.
Thank you. I'm going to point out a couple things before I get into the 1031 exchange part of it. And like I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years. So I come into a lot of these offices, and in the beginning, Rodney said the prayer, and a lot of times they come in with a motivational thing, not the prayer. And we focus on a couple things, unfortunate things, and it really puts things into perspective for me. So it's a good thing. You don't see that in many offices, so I think it's positive. Another thing I want to focus on too is I'm with First American Exchange Company. Okay, Gina was here, and I don't compete with Gina. I don't sell title. So whoever you choose with title, escrow, whoever you like to work with, I can still work with you guys. We worked with, IPX, who's under or with Chicago Title, their escrow company, with the independents. So whoever you guys choose to work with, it doesn't force you to go with First American for title and escrow if you choose First American as an exchange company. Okay. 1031 exchange, I know only a couple of you raised your hands as far as closing one in the past. If you guys are fairly new to the business within the last 5 years, you might not have seen many of these. In 2005, 2006, 2007, we were doing about 500 a month. It was insane. And you roll your eyes because you know how crazy it was. It probably will never get back to that. I hope it does in a sense. But what 1031 exchange is a tax shelter. 1031 is a tax code. Okay, the tax code the IRS gives us, and it basically says property held for productive use in trade or business can be exchanged for like-kind property without the recognition of gain or loss. So I did email you guys this advantages of 1031 exchange, and in that, you know, the advantages are good to learn for you guys, for your clients. This is the client's advantage. You know, they could leverage property, they could diversify, they could buy more property to have more properties and have a bigger portfolio of properties, hopefully net them more income. And all of this is, as Mel was saying, you guys want more money, you want to close deals with more money, as does your client. So what can you present to your client to be a benefit to them? And just having a little bit of knowledge and having me in your back pocket could help you through that process and hopefully net you more deals. Consolidation, we get the clients, you know, as Mel was saying, you know, the older clients, they're just done owning property. They don't want to manage property anymore, you know, so they're going to sell the property they've been managing and maybe get into something different. Now, it has to be real estate, but it could be one of the TIC programs, a Delaware statutory trust. We've seen people go into, you know, oil and lease rights that could be considered like-kind property. So there are opportunities other than just managing, you know, real estate, managing that property, that they could go in and have less management and still net an income monthly. Management relief, increased cash flow income. Scroll down just a tad. Increased purchasing power. So the whole idea, yeah.
This green button.
Oh, perfect, thank you. We'll go down. So the whole idea of your 1031 exchange is to, instead of paying Uncle Sam, Mel was talking about a $4 million transaction. Now, what you do is you figure out your basis in the property, figure out what your gain is. So if you take your original purchase price of the property.
Theirs was 1.2.
1.2. They bought it for 1.2. They owned it for how long?
Well, over a period of 30 years, some of the properties, 15, some 20.
Okay, so there's depreciation probably going on the property, the improved property. Vacant land you can't depreciate. So you take your original purchase price, 1.2. Capital improvements, do they put capital improvements in the property? No, no capital improvements. Let's say they did. Let's say they bought it for 1.2, put $800,000 into the property. Their basis is $2 million. They took $500,000 depreciation over the last 30 years. Their basis is $1.5 million. They're selling the property for over $4 million. So they have a $2.5 million gain plus, right? They could pay up to 35% capital gains tax on $2.5 million. So on that, what is it? You have an excess of what, $800,000 tax consequence. So why pay that money when you could retain it and apply it towards other real estate to hopefully net you more income? It makes sense. And here's the benefit to you. This is good, great to show the client. You have a client that's selling that has to buy other real estate. I've literally had a client sell one piece of commercial property. They wanted to get into residential property. They bought 10 residential properties and the same real estate agent handled every deal. 10 deals, 11 deals, closing within 180 days. Sounds like a good client to me. Okay? Not only that, they own multiple properties. You can exchange other properties within the same year. Or there's a holding period, so in 2 years, they're ready to move it again. They're ready to do another transaction. It's a client for life. You know, principal residences are great. They sell, they may buy, you may get both ends. But a lot of times people live in a principal residence for 10 years.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, it's a client for a couple, and you may get it. You guys treat them right, you get the referrals. It's a great thing, but an investor also, they're moving properties every few years and multiple properties. Okay, I am going to bring up a couple things that are new that you got to be careful of. There's proposals out there that they want to eliminate 1031 exchange. You guys may or may not have heard of it. Don't stress out about it. A lot of my commercial brokers are worried about it. I'm not losing sleep over it, and it's my living. I've been with First American for over 20 years. I've been doing 1031 exchange for the last 15, 16 years. And there's always been a proposal out there to eliminate us, you know. Will they do it? maybe one day, I don't know. There also is a proposal out there that'll cap out the amount of the gain they can defer in a year. $1 million is the number they show right now. That takes out the big guy. The big guy that's selling his, commercial building for $15 million, is he gonna wanna exchange now if he can only defer $1 million? Now, our residences, usually your mom and pop that own a residential rental, they can still exchange a benefit from that. Now, those are just proposals, so I just wanted you to be alert of it. I'll sign you guys up for my newsletter if you're not already, and we'll try to keep you updated. So when you guys hear something, that's pretty much the new stuff that's out. Another new thing that's out is from the last time I spoke here, the capital gain rates. Capital gain rates are 15% for the feds, and was like 9% for a little over 9% for the state of California. Now we're looking at 15% for the feds, 12% for the state of California, an additional 3.8 if your income levels are above 200,000 if you're single, 250,000 if you're married. That's the 3.8 for the Medicare tax that's applied towards capital gain. And then if your income levels are over 400,000 or 450,000, there's an additional 5% for the feds. And when I say income levels, now if I earn $250,000 at my job and I have to sell my property and have a $250,000 gain, I'm in the $500,000 bracket. Okay, so that could jump them up to the max capital gain rate. That's why I say your client could be paying up to over 35% on capital gains tax. So let's try to avoid that, get you more deals, and I can help you through that process. Now, 1031 exchange. Two things in the definition I want to point out. Like-kind property. I kind of touched on this, but you could sell single-family residence and buy commercial. You could sell commercial, buy apartments. You could sell vacant land. Vacant land's included, and buy a single-family residence. That might be a good selling point for you guys. Vacant land typically is just sitting there. You're paying a property tax. You're not collecting an income. You could exchange out of that into a primary residence and collect a rental. Something you could depreciate annually too. So it might be a good selling point if you have clients that own vacant land. Now, I wouldn't recommend necessarily going from an improved property to vacant land typically, because you're going from a depreciable property to a non-depreciable property. The IRS will tax you 25% of the depreciation you've taken on that property because you went from a depreciable property to a non-depreciable property. So vacant land to improved, good. Improved to vacant land, maybe not so good. Be careful, because there could create a tax consequence. Okay, so like-kind property just means investment, real estate held for investment, be in exchange for other real estate that is also going to be held for investment. Okay. Someone say something? Any questions? Good. Okay. Like-kind property. Defer all your taxes. When you do an exchange, you want to buy a B Corp greater value too. B Corp greater value and a B Corp greater equity. In order to do that, you could sell, let's say, $1 million property, and you could buy two $500,000 properties. So there's where you're getting your multiple deals. You don't have to buy a $1 million property. You could sell a $1 million property and buy three $1 million properties if you want. Okay, so you can buy multiple properties to meet your value or exceed your value if you want to diversify your portfolio and buy other properties. You can spread out the equity how you want. Okay, so equal or greater value, equal or greater equity. There's a misconception out there that says, I have to exchange the debt. And that's not necessarily true, because you can bring in cash to the deal to offset the debt. A lot of people don't want to have a loan anymore, which is fine if they have cash. So if I sell for $1 million and $500,000 rolls out of it as sale proceeds, now I need to buy something for $1 million utilizing that $500,000. How am I going to make up the other $500,000? It's either going to be a loan, or they could bring in cash out of pocket to offset it. They do not have to match the debt on the property they sold. Misconception. Okay? Good. So what's your job? I mean, basically what you want to worry about when you're doing a 1031 exchange is can the client benefit from the 1031 exchange? Present them their options. You're getting a listing. You're figuring out, is it a primary residence or is it an investment property? What if it's a primary residence and they own a duplex and they're renting out the other unit? They can exchange. What if it's a house and they run a daycare out of the house? It's a business. You can run a business. The mechanic that owns this real estate can sell his business. sell the real estate portion of it and exchange the real estate portion, not the business portion. So if you run a business out of it, you could declare a value of the business portion of the house and still do partial 1031 exchange. Okay, so don't just
That's
think,
a good one.
yeah, so don't just automatically think, oh, they live here, they can't do an exchange.
So I have my workshop out in my garage for making my stuff, that portion of the property
Yeah.
could be applied to an
Yeah. And where might that benefit them? Because I mean, in your, if I say 121 is your, the ARC 121 is your exemption. When it's your primary residence, you don't have to pay capital gains tax up to $250,000 if you're single or $500,000 if you're married. But I get the clients that call me and they bought this property in 1968, you know, for $150,000, and now they're going to sell.
50.
Yeah, or whatever.
$50,000.
Yeah. But it's in Beverly Hills saying now they're selling it for 8.6 million. You only get up to 500,000. Maybe a portion of it was investment property. Or, and I know you guys don't like this game plan because you want deals right away. But sometimes we gotta be patient too. So what if they own this property, and that's the case, they have a gain greater than the 500,000. They don't want to pay the tax over the 500,000. What are my options? Well, you need a 2-year holding period as an investment property in order to do a 1031 exchange. So if I sell property, that's my primary residence, everything over 500,000 is taxable. What if I move out, keep the property, rent it for 2 years, and now I sell it? Now I qualify for 1031 because I held it as a rental for the last 2 years. I also qualify for the 121 because I owned it 2 out of the last 5 years, which is all you need to meet. So now you could pocket $500,000 as a seller and 1031 exchange the value above the $500,000, right? So like I said, you want the deal, you want them to sell it right now, but if we're patient, maybe we get a couple deals out of it a couple years down the road. And what I always feel is best is giving the client the best options possible. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll get more deals, maybe you get more referrals. So there are ways around if they have gain greater than the $500,000, okay? What if my client wants to buy a primary residence? You cannot do it. You have to exchange investment property for investment property. So you can sell your investment property, buy a single family residence where you want to live, maybe you want to retire, okay? Rent it for 2 years. You rent it for 2 years, the IRS allows you to convert it to your primary residence after 2 years if you exchange into the property. Rent it for 2 years, you live there for 2 years, buy it today. Rent it for 2 years from today, move into it 2 years and a day from today. Now it's my primary residence, I can live there. No tax consequence when you convert, okay? You cannot sell that property though for 5 years from your acquisition date. Today, we acquired the property. 2 years rental, you can't sell it for 5 years from today to benefit at all from your 121 exemption, okay? I'm gonna draw these numbers out to 10 years to make the numbers easy. Now let's say we own the property for 10 years. First 2 years use investment because of the exchange. The next 8 years, primary residence. Now I'm selling the property. Okay? We can only defer 80% of the 500,000 if you're married because the first 20% was investment portion on the exchange. So they'll only allow you up to 400,000, not 500,000 gain. Then you're tax exempt because you exchanged into it. But it's a good deal anyways, because you're gonna live in it anyways. You still get up to $400,000 gain you could defer, you know, and maybe you don't have a gain greater than $400,000. Some people just like the fact that they can convert it to their primary residence, okay? So you're figuring out, getting the listing, you're figuring out if you can do a 1031 exchange. You can get me involved at that time as far as conversations, meetings, sitting down with them, giving them comfort in what a 1031 exchange is. But I can't open anything until you officially open escrow. So you open escrow, you call me up, Ken, we got a 1031 exchange for Joe and Maria, and we're gonna go ahead and set it up. Let's do it. I get escrow instructions, purchase agreement, prelim, and that allows me to prepare my exchange agreement, my assignment agreement. What we're doing is we're getting assigned into the transaction as the seller and the property being sold. And then ultimately when we go to buy property, we're getting assigned in as the buyer. We're not taking ownership to the property though, okay? They're direct deeding, so it goes directly from the seller to the ultimate buyer. But what we're doing with this assignment agreement is We assign ourselves into the contract. The seller's not relieved of their obligations of the contract, but it creates a two-party transaction. So on the sale, it's with First American Exchange, and on the buy, it's with First American Exchange. The only time you do not need a qualified intermediary, which is what we do, we act as a qualified intermediary, is in a swap transaction. You own a property, I own a property, we trade, right? That has to happen under one escrow. Okay, we trade the properties, but it's a two-party transaction. You do not need a qualified intermediary. So you save yourself $1,000, $2,000 in our fee. Okay. Some clients want the protection of the qualified intermediary, do a swap and still want the exchange. That's fine, but you don't have to. Okay, so that's the only time. There's a misconception out there that people think, oh, I'm closing simultaneously on the sale and the buy. I don't need a qualified intermediary. Yes, you do. Okay, we need to be assigned in. We need to create that two-party transaction. First American Exchange on sale, First American Exchange on the buy. Okay, so don't think that they close simultaneously. They do not need a 1031 exchange. You're closing tomorrow on a property. The client didn't want to exchange. All of a sudden they say, oh, let's do an exchange. Closing tomorrow. Great, give me a call. We'll get it done. We can get things done fairly quickly. If I get escrow instructions and all that good stuff, within a day, I can have documents prepared, emailed out for signature. Nothing needs to be notarized. As long as they're sent back by closing, I have signed documents through email. I'm ready to close. We're officially assigned into the transaction by closing. You have a deal that closes yesterday and your seller wants to do an exchange. Don't call me. I'll give you a number to call. I'm just kidding. No, the tax code says, and I get this all the time, hey, I closed last week on the property, but escrow hasn't sent me the money, so I haven't touched the money. So let's go ahead and do the 1031 exchange. We'll send it directly to you. The tax code says once benefits and burdens of the property have been transferred to the ultimate buyer, it's basically too late to set up the 1031 exchange. So upon recordation of the grant deed in the state of California, benefits and burdens have been transferred regardless of where that money's gone, whether they touched it or not. Going to the money, there's a constructive receipt of funds. We hold on to the funds of the transaction on the property that's being sold. Okay, so once you close escrow, we close escrow today. So we did all our homework up front. We figured out they had an investment property. We figured out what they want to buy. You guys are already looking for replacement property. Okay, the sale proceeds come to us and we hold on to them. They cannot hold on to the funds. They cannot direct the funds. They cannot pledge the funds. They cannot borrow the funds. They have to come into a qualified intermediary that holds on to it to apply it towards the acquisition of the replacement property within 180 days. Okay, so we close today. Money comes into First American Exchange. And let me tell you what's the most important thing to sell this is my little sales pitch of this whole thing. First American Exchange backs your funds. You want to find a company with financial security. If you feel more comfortable giving multiple referrals out on a 1031 exchange company, be careful on who you're referring out. Okay, make sure they have a backing financially. Okay, it's my job to sell myself. Give them my information. I'll talk to them. I'll give them comfort in coming with First American. First American Title, our parent company, will issue a guarantee letter with their funds, for their funds, that says if Ken Harris decides to run off with money, which would be literally almost impossible unless I got 5 people on board within First American, because we're a big corporation, you have all the checks and balances, we're going to back those funds. They're going to be there. In the past, accommodators have failed, fell apart, invested funds in bad auction rate securities or student loans to drive interest rates up to offer to the client to get the business. Well, in 2008, when things died, and they had their funds in high liability stuff, their funds weren't there to buy property. Yeah. So not only did they struggle getting all their money back through insurances and stuff, they lost their ability to exchange because they didn't close on a replacement property within 180 days. The IRS doesn't care. You have to pay your capital gains tax. So be careful on who you go with as far as 1031 exchange, because they do hold on to your money. You want that financial security. Our fee to do an exchange is anything being sold under $1 million is $1,000. Anything from $1 million to $5 million is $1,500, and anything over $5 million is $2,000. It's a very small price to pay to save hundreds of thousands in taxes and have financial security of your money. Okay. And those fees include the purchase of one replacement property. So we collect the fee at the close of the sale. No additional fee when you close on your first purchase. If you close on additional purchases, because they're going to buy 3 properties, it's only $200 for each additional purchase. Okay? So it's a pretty small price to pay. You can call around. call another company, and probably save a couple $100. Be careful.
Don't.
No, yeah. Be careful. So we close today. If you guys open your brochures, open to page 3. We close today. The funds come into the exchange. We want to close on the purchase or replacement property. You have 45 days from the day you close escrow on the property you're selling to identify. Within 45 days, if you look at the bottom there, 3 property rule, 200% rule, 95% rule. You have to identify within the 3 rules. The first rule says, I can identify 1, 2, or 3 properties at any value. I can choose from those 3. I can identify 1 and just buy the 1. I can identify 3 and buy 2 of the 3 or all 3. I can identify just 2. You cannot go above 3 properties. You don't have to acquire them all, but of course we want to meet the equal or greater value and equal or greater equity. Okay, so that's the most common rule to identify. So, you know, if they want to buy 1, they identify 3, you know, and they have 3 to choose from by the 45 days. Let's say you identify to me on day 10, day 25, it doesn't work. That's fine. Let's go ahead and revoke those and replace them with other identified properties. But don't come to me on day 46 and try to revoke and replace. Day 45, it's locked in to what you identified. Okay? And this is I think this is your stressful part of the job. If you have an investor, you want the other deal, you're trying to find another property, please remember you could be in escrow on a property you're purchasing prior to closing on your sale. Now you have it locked down. Now you're not identifying on day 45 blindly, hoping you get that deal when you put an offer on it on day 50. You can't change the identification. You could have a couple backups, but who's to say that those backups are going to be available when you put those offers on? Okay? You have a failed exchange, you're going to pay your taxes. The biggest negative to 1031 exchange is the restriction of the funds. So funds come to us, you must identify within 45 days. If you're not going to identify, and you know this on day 20, the IRS does not allow us to refund the money until after the day 45. And basically we just say, do not identify, and then you can't buy anything when you send your balance of funds day 46. Okay? Let's say you do identify. Day 50, you put offers on every property, and they're not available. Give me money back, I'm going to fail anyways, no big deal. The IRS only allows us to apply the funds towards the acquisition or replacement property during the term of the exchange, which means I have to hold it 180 days.
Oh my gosh.
So, that's the biggest negative. There's a restriction of the funds. We can't send the funds just when they say. All right, so it's a minimum of 45 days, maybe 180 if they identify. We can always apply the funds towards the acquisition of the replacement property. Okay, so be careful with that. If you can find property, be in escrow prior to the 45 days. Be in escrow prior to closing your sale. But your timing has got to work out where you close your sale first and your purchase second, or your purchase is second. So it could get difficult. 200% rule. You want to identify more than, I had a client sold for $2.5 million, wanted to scoop up a bunch of residential properties. He identified under the 200% rule. Using the $2.5 million, what this rule says is you can identify 4 or more properties, any number of properties, as long as the total combined value of every property you identify does not exceed 2 times the value of the property you sold. So the $2.5 million sale could identify up to $5 million of property, and then choose from that list. Okay, so it's possible to identify 4. The IRS doesn't want you to be able to identify the whole MLS and choose from that. Yeah, they give us this tax shelter. Here you go. They make it difficult. They want people to fail. They want people to pay their taxes. So another thing that agents are doing too is in the purchase agreement, when the client is selling, they'll put in an option to extend close of escrow. If you can. Time starts ticking the day you close escrow. If you can extend close of escrow another 30 days to give you more time to find property, that's more time. So 45 starts the day you close escrow. The 180 days that you have to close also starts the day you close escrow. Okay, so 3 property rule, 200% rule. You have to submit by day 45. Be careful, don't identify blindly, and not be able to get those properties for your client. Okay? The next rule I'll touch on, 95% rule. Obviously, that means you don't fall within the 3 property rule. You don't fall within the 200% rule. This says you must acquire 95% of the aggregate value of what you identified. I'll give you an example. You sell for $1 million. You identify 10 properties for $1 million each. So you're identifying more than 3, and the total combined value is $10 million, so it's more than 200% of the $1 million property you sold. This means you must acquire every property you identified. Otherwise, it destroys your entire exchange. Okay? So, you identify 10 million. If one falls out of escrow, that means you only acquire 90% of the aggregate value of what you identified. So it drops you below 95% failed exchange. Under the other two rules, let's say you sell for $1 million, you identify three $350,000 properties. You only end up closing on 2 of the 3. So you trade into $700,000. That's okay, you still benefit from the exchange, you just may pay a tax on the difference. So a trade down is okay unless you identify under the 95% rule. Destroys the entire exchange. Okay. The only time I've seen it work is a portfolio closing. Portfolio closing where they're closing on 20 properties, it's all under one closing or nothing, so it's all or nothing anyways. So that's the only time you really see it. So we usually don't bring this up too much, but just to have it in the back of your mind to know there's an ability to go over the 3 property rule, over the 200% rule. Okay, and I'll get involved too. No, you can call me anytime to help you through this process. I'm giving you guys a ton of information today. I don't expect you to remember it all. A couple of other things I'm going to point out. If you look in the front of your brochure, partnership issues, drop and swap. Now the entity that sells must be the same entity that buys. If I'm Ken Harris selling, I have to be Ken Harris buying. Okay, I can't be Ken Harris and then buy under ABC Corporation. Okay, what the IRS is going to be looking for is tax identification number, social security number, social security number. So this information is about a drop and swap. So we have a lot of people calling. I own this property with 3 other people under ABC LLC. My brother wants to cash out, pay his taxes. Our friend wants to do a 1031 exchange, and I want to do a 1031 exchange, but not with my friend that wants to exchange. Well, ABC LLC is the taxpayer. They have a tax identification number that has the holding period on the property being sold. So if they deed the property to the individuals and then immediately sell and do an exchange, the IRS is going to get this file and say, oh, wait, here they're doing a 1031 exchange. ABC LLC owned it, filed their taxes. How is Ken Harris buying the property and the replacement property? They may disallow your exchange. Okay, so be careful if they're going to change ownership or deed property to a different name because you have to create a holding period too. So if they're going to deed right before they close or right before they enter contract, it gets a little risky. Be careful. Okay. Yes.
What if it's not an LLC, like it's just 2 brothers with their names, and then one wants to exchange and the other wants to?
Yeah, Mel had a similar scenario where you can, if we own it as tenant in common, you own 50%, I own 50%, I can do an exchange, you could cash out. Because you have your tax filing under your social security number, I have my tax filing under my social security number, and so it's going to match when I do an exchange, and then you're just going to pay your taxes anyways. So if it's a tenant in common, I love that. When they call me, oh, we got this partnership going on, how do you guys own title? My first question. How do you guys own title? Because if they tell me it's in a partnership and the partnership issued K-1s and you know what, I'm not here to tell them they can't do it. I'm here to tell them be careful. Talk to your CPA, talk to your attorney. It's risky. I'm going to tell you, hey, you're raising a red flag to the IRS. I don't want to be the exchange police. I'm not going to tell you you can't do it. Yes.
Quick question, playing on what she just said. With a limited liability corporation, what you're saying is that if you're going to set one up, you're probably better off setting it up as a tenants in common and identifying all the investors.
I did have an attorney that was proactive and thought about that in advance and set up separate LLCs for every client. There was like four different LLCs that owned the property as to a 25% interest. That way, when they sold, each LLC could do their own thing. You could sell.
So each of the individual investors became their own partnership in essence.
Exactly.
And then the umbrella partnership had the 4 entities in common.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if you have a client buying in a partnership, three partners buying in a partnership, stop. Wait a minute. Let's get advice here maybe from your CPA or what. 5 years down the road, you guys may want to go separate ways. The LLC, if the LLC is a partnership and it's tax identification 45-123456, that LLC can do an exchange and buy under the LLC. That's fine. But so many times those partners want to do something different. They want to dissolve it and go on their own way. So many times that happens. So, be careful.
How about if the property is in a trust What happens?
Trust is fine. Okay, trusts and single member LLCs work kind of the same way. That is 99% of the time, they're disregarded entities for tax purposes. What that means is I can own a property myself under ABC LLC. I'm the sole member of the LLC, okay? ABC LLC doesn't file a tax return. It's just a level of protection, all right? Ken Harris is the taxpayer. So if I go to buy my property, I could buy it under Ken Harris for loan purposes or whatever, because technically the single member LLC, the IRS never saw. They really saw Ken Harris. Same thing with a trust. 99% of the time, now every once in a while we get a deal where a trust actually has its own tax identification number. 99% of the time it doesn't. The trustees of the trust are the taxpayers and their own social security numbers anyway. So they could go, so those are the two exceptions. Single member LLCs and trusts still can meet their same taxpayer requirement if they change the vesting. Like I'm not worried if they go, you know, Ken Harris and Rachel Harris, husband and wife as joint tenants to Ken Harris, Rachel Harris, husband and wife as community property with right of survivorship. You're still meeting your same taxpayer requirement. Changing that vesting doesn't mean anything. It's social security number that has to match up, okay? Couple other points I want to point out real quick. I won't take too much more of your time. Seller carryback financing with 1031 exchange, mixed like oil and water, okay? Equal or greater value, equal or greater equity. Where do you get the money on seller carryback financing? The equity of the sale. How are you going to roll the equity of a sale into the purchase of replacement property if it's rolled up in a note? Be careful. Before you do an offer, if it's a possible 1031 exchange and you're offering seller carryback financing to your buyer, call me first. Okay, there's ways around it. A lot of times, mostly we'll have the buyer bring in the money instead of using the equity from the sale, if they have the money. So they bring in the money, they act as a third-party lender personally, okay? It's possible for it to come into the exchange and then it be bought by a third-party investor or the actual client themselves. And I've even seen it roll into the acquisition of the replacement property if the seller is willing to accept the note as part of the payment towards the purchase price. So there's options to that. But be careful, 1031 exchange, seller carryback financing, when you're doing your offers or getting into your offers, be careful with that. There's also the ability to close escrow on a property you're purchasing first in exchange and a reverse exchange. Much more expensive. Usually the fees start at least $7,500, but you're preserving a property as a replacement property. You can't roll a property into, you can't exchange it into a property you already own. So a reverse exchange helps you if you have to close escrow on that purchase first. We come in, we create an LLC, we buy that property utilizing the client's funds. So there's a main obstacle. Use the client's funds. Do they have the money? Third-party lender would have to lend to our LLC as a non-recourse loan. So a lot of times third-party lender might kill the deal. Well, they don't kill the deal, they just won't lend to our LLC to buy the property. Okay, so there is an ability to possibly buy property first. So in all of that, I just want you to know, don't automatically think you can or can't exchange. Call me, get me involved with your clients. I'll talk their transaction through, talk it through with you guys, and hopefully get you guys more deals. Okay, any questions?
Want to go back to principal residence and using a portion of your property for business.
Okay.
How will the IRS determine that you use the property for business?
Well, hopefully you've claimed that on your previous year's tax
You
returns.
need to claim that property tax.
Correct.
So like if we have our real estate business office in our home, or in my case, I have a workshop because
Yeah.
I make things,
Exactly.
I sell.
So you're going to have to claim that as a
So-
business
so
out of your house.
For 2 years.
For 2 years, typically, yes. Yes.
Okay, can it be an amended tax return?
Yeah. Yeah.
All
All right. Yeah, you
The
can.
reason why
You
I
can.
asked that is, for years, I've avoided taking the business deduction on the home just because I don't want the IRS to have a red flag to come in and bother me.
Okay.
The significance of the difference.
And they can knock on your door and come in your house if you claim that on.
That's right.
Exactly.
So, in the past I've done it, but now this last year, I did use it,
Okay.
okay? And the year before, I need to use it but have it amended.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was just a point of, when we're doing that, we're just describing the ratios of how much of the house we're using for that business.
Exactly.
So that will establish that part of it that could be used in the exchange.
Use in exchange, correct. And in your scenario, I mean, do you have gain greater than $250,000?
Not yet.
You're married $500,000?
Not yet. I'm
Not yet,
planning
okay,
to.
so you're planning, planning down the road.
In the works.
Know this too. Know this too. A tax exchange, 1031 tax deferred exchange is not a tax-free exchange. If you sell and ultimately do an exchange, if you ultimately sell the property you exchanged into, the basis of the property you sell rolls into the acquisition of the replacement property. So if you sell 10 years down the road, their original basis affects your tax consequence later down the road. A lot of my clients' tax, their plan is exchange until I die. What happens when I die? I get a step up in basis. The value of the property the day I die on the property I owned is now the basis. So if my kids inherit my property, they can sell it at no capital gain consequence. So that's pretty much your only way out of it is to die. Yeah.
You need to have kids in order to go ahead and be able to pass it along.
Yeah, yeah, and you need kids, exactly. Exactly.
There
Yeah,
you go.
there you go, exactly. Yeah, they could get it. So again, I've honestly given these classes for 3 hours and didn't touch on everything. So there's so much out there, and I'm available at you guys' in your brochures, my card's there. Call me on my cell phone, and I'll be there to answer your questions. Okay?
All right, for Ken.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, guys, these are just tools that we're trying to empower you with. Please turn the light on, Aida. Aida, please, Aida, can you turn the light on, please? Thank you. All right, Ken has left his business card in his folder.
I'll leave extras too.
It's very accessible. They do good work, and what is great about them is that they've been around for a long time. I've heard of nightmares where they've had accommodators who went out and embezzled the money, and your client is tied up, their money is gone, they end up not getting their money back in time where they could actually have the tax deferred, and so it's a real nightmare. Guess who your client's going to be looking at?
Hello.
You're going to be looking at you. So it's important to work with people who know what they're doing, have been doing it for a while, and has pretty strong backing. So, Ken, hopefully you get to connect with any of these folks who may have individual questions. But 1031 is a great way. If you have clients that have been in business or have owned property for a while that are investment properties and they don't want to pay taxes on it, but they want to do other transactions, you can do multiple transactions. I'll tell you, for example, in the one that I closed a year ago, the client ended up selling all those properties to one entity. And then one of the clients, as I said, wanted to just pay their tax and get all their money and go out and buy a brand new Porsche cash and blah, 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 and do their thing. The other client wanted to buy other properties, so I ended up finding 2 additional properties for them that amounted to about $2 million. And so they paid all cash for those properties from the exchange. And so it was great. I had 3 transactions out of one. One was 4.6, another was 1.2 something, and another one I think was like $700 some thousand. So it really can be a great value to you. If you think of it in terms of helping your clients preserve their assets, leverage their assets so that they can defer the tax for a future date and let their estate deal with the taxes later. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Your snacks over here in the kitchen.